Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you all to the first meeting to talk about parks, recreation, and trails. My name is Melanie Sims. I'm a principal planner with the town, and I'll be facilitating the meeting. I am joined by Kyle Packer, senior planner, and Rosalind Epting, who's the Parks and Rec director. And we are all here to support you through the discussion tonight. Now, I do know there are some folks who waited through the other meetings to get to Parks, Recreation, and Trails. So if this is your first meeting with the group, or if you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself before, would you please raise your virtual hand so you can introduce yourself to the group? Candy?
Oh, hi. I hope everyone can hear me. I have multiple studios in my house, so I just kind of set up this one briefly, like my virtual background for today. You don't want to see what's behind there. I am a branding executive and I'm an entrepreneur, and my husband and I are location independent, and we chose to live in Oro Valley and relocated here about 3 years ago from Seattle. And we travel in the summer, and currently, if you were to see my other windows over here on my other screen, I have 15 tabs open to plan a trip to Amsterdam. So I'm closing them right now so I don't crash this while we go.
Thank you. And safe travels. Matt?
Oh, hi, Matt Wood. I used to be on the PRAB board for 4 years, and then I took a year off, and now I'm back on PRAB. So I wanted to attend this meeting and see what was going on.
Great. Really appreciate you being here, Matt. And is there anyone else that this is your first meeting that you'd like to introduce yourself? Not seeing any hands raised. Okay, and I do ask if possible, if everyone could have their cameras on. It just helps us get to know each other and put faces to names. But if you're not able to, that's fine as well. What's most important is that you're here and participating. Before we get into the discussion tonight, I have some information to share, so just give me one moment. All right, so the purpose of tonight's meeting is to gather additional guidance and ideas related to the priorities that residents shared last year. The guidance provided last year, as well as what you provide this evening and provided online, and our legal requirements will help form the draft goals, policies, and actions. I want to thank you all for doing an outstanding job on completing the homework. Those comments help generate the agenda for tonight. So we will talk about trails, programs, and facilities. That includes accessibility as well as indoor programs, volunteers, partnerships, and funding. Now, using the information, we will be working to, again, create those draft goals, policies, and actions. So just quickly on what that means, our goals are kind of our higher level. What are we striving for? It's really telling us what the desired results are, where our policies and actions are the how do we get there. And the actions are the most specific of the entire 10-year plan, because that really is what gives the town its marching orders, if you will, to make sure that resident priorities are being met over the next 10 years. Now, our number one goal is to make sure that the plan represents residents and honors what we heard over the past year. So there was what we called the Big Community Survey, which was statistically projectable to all Oro Valley adults. But in addition, we had over 90 events as well as an interactive website. So you'll see on the screen that really the percentages are reflective of the survey, but this information was also heard at events and online as well. So looking at what we heard with regards to park, recreation, and trails, parks is definitely, and recreation is definitely valued in this community. 74% think that Oro Valley should be known for its outdoor and recreational lifestyle. There were some comments about improving the parks, especially having facilities or options during the hot summer months and amenities for all ages. There was also a want for more variety in terms of sports and activity options. And then when it comes to trails and bike and pedestrian connectivity, there was a want for more trails, better connections, and then more routes. Now, hopefully everyone had a chance to read through the background reports or watch the videos, but I want to go over some information quickly to help with the discussion tonight. So the town does own and maintain both regional and community parks. This includes James Decree, Naranja Park, and Riverfront Park. There's also the Aquatic Center, Community Center, and Golf Course. In addition to what the town owns and maintains, there are also several private parks that are maintained by HOAs. Now, looking ahead, the town does anticipate that there will be continued and increased demand for sports activities and needs to renovate and redevelop some of our older facilities. Now, I know this slide has way more information than you can read, and it's pretty small, but the purpose of this slide is just show that the recreational activities the town has. So recreation, when we're talking about that, there's really two types of recreation we look at, and that's passive and active. So your passive recreation is really your low impact activities, so walking, going to dog parks, things of that nature. Well, your active activities are, as you can imagine, what requires more energy, so sports, swimming, playgrounds, those nature. Now, this chart does come from the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which kind of shows all the recreation programs that we have, and also specifies the town's core program areas. So that's focused on the length of time they're ran, how much of the budget they consume, who they're serving in terms of demographics, and then some more aspects to it related to staffing and the facilities. Now, looking at programs and events, the town offers 115 unique programs. What I mean by unique is that each program is only counted once. So when we look at 115, it doesn't mean that's the total amount of times a program's happening. So for instance, if there's a program that happens both in the spring and fall, it's only counted once, even though it's offered twice. The town also hosts roughly 54 events that brings in people from around the region. There are youth and adult programs and senior programs. The prices do vary, and we do also work with other programs or contract instructors for some of these programs, so they're not all staff-led. Now, looking ahead, there is a need for programs and instructors to run the programs for young children. And lastly, when it comes to trails, the town does have 54.5 miles of dirt trails. We also have a portion of the loop going through the town. And there's also the multi-use paths. I do want to let everyone know that right now, and this stems from the last general plan actually, there is an effort to create a trails master plan called OV Trails Connect. So we are going to start off with trails tonight because we are making sure that your effort this evening and with the 10-year plan is also being aligned with what's going on with the Trails Master Plan. Now, if you're really interested and passionate about trails, I do encourage you to participate in their meetings. They have one coming up on May 14th from 5:30 to 7:30. That will also be online. And if you visit ovtrailsconnect.com, you could definitely get more information about that effort. Now, in addition to the resident guidance, we also reached out to different groups in the area. And hold on, Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah, did you mean April 14th, not May 14th?
No, the next meeting will be May 14th
Oh,
for
okay.
the OV Trails Connect. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So we did get additional guidance again through the OV Trails Connect, through their efforts. There's been a lot of outreach with mountain bike groups, different trail user group, walking groups. And through that, they've identified some current themes, and that's making sure that existing trails and assets are maintained. There's more connectivity, accessibility, and safety, and also signage and wayfinding. Now, those are similar to some of what we've heard also over the past year. We also reached out to the Oro Valley Sports Alliance, and these are some of, I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of what they would like this group to consider. is, supporting all ages and abilities, looking at completing Naranja Park, and then also updating the Parks and Recreation Plan and looking at ways to expand the park system, but making sure that's in balance with, especially when doing tournaments, making sure that those are in balance with what the local community needs. So with that, I am going to launch our virtual whiteboard. Um, just one moment. All right. Now I know everyone can't read what's on the whiteboard just yet, but I just want to kind of go through what we're aiming to achieve tonight. I also want to remind folks that um, if you, throughout the meeting, if you're having trouble viewing information, on your lower right-hand corner, you have a navigation menu. You can use the zoom out, zoom in, or even the little hand icon to move around on the board, and that won't affect anybody else's view. So with that, we are going to start off tonight again with trails. Is our blue area. You can see on here, there's a lot of information under each of these three areas. So we may not get through it all tonight, and that's okay. Again, what's most important is hearing your voices tonight, and that is why we do have our meeting on the 24th and a possible meeting on May 8th to make sure that we're most importantly getting all your comments down. After we go through trails, we'll get to programs and facilities, and then we'll wrap up with volunteers, partnership, and funding in purple. So I am going to zoom us over to trails. Under trails, we have a couple categories of what people valued. Then there were a lot of comments about connectivity and having more trails. Then we will then talk about maintenance and restoration of Vistoso Trails Preserve. There's some comments about that. Amenities, signage, and then we'll talk about safety. So again, I'm going to move us over to the connectivity, the first blue columns. So we're looking at, let's start with values. So what people like about the trail system. So we're looking at, it starts with 1 and there's a 3 on the bottom. And again, if you're having trouble viewing these, please use the zoom in or zoom out function in your lower right-hand corner. Going to give everyone a moment to read through these, but if you have anything that you want to add, you want to elaborate on a comment you made, or if you have any questions, please raise your virtual hand. So we're on values right now. So this is what you like most about the OV Trails, Loop, or multi-use paths. Looks like most people are done reading. So I am going to move us over then. Let's talk about connectivity. So we have connectivity and more trails. There was comments about connecting to shopping areas, neighborhoods, a lot of comments about access or crossing Oracle Road as a need, connecting to the loop, other trails and paths, and then having more trails. So I'll give folks a moment to read through these. And again, if you have any questions, want to add any comments or elaborate on anything, please raise your virtual hand so we can get your comment on the board. You're also welcome to use the chat if you're more comfortable with that. Emily?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I saw it in there, but I had an experience where I was like one of my kids had a bike accident in the middle of the Vistoso Trails Preserve, and I didn't have any cell service in the middle of it. So I think like my thought would be like making sure that there is cell service or expanded self service within the trails, because it's hot, you can get stuck, you can have an accident, so that people can reach out and receive those emergency services. Because we don't have it. I know for sure we don't have it in the Vistoso trails. I carried a screaming toddler all the way back. We were okay, but you know, it would have been nice to have some cell service.
Okay, thank you, Emily.
Yeah, hi, it's Roberta. I just have a question, if I may. I do not wish to get off topic, so if this is totally off topic, please let me know. I'm looking like connecting the loop and more trails and all that, and there was some mention, some by me at the last meeting, about how lots of the trails, some of them anyway, are not in great shape. They need to be graded. I'm talking about the natural trails, and then the trails that do exist, and I don't know if this is part of your purview, but for example, the 0.7 mile trail that so many people walk at Riverfront Park that loops around is in horrendous shape. I've seen, well, I'm not young, but people older than me fall. Hell, I've fallen. So is maintaining what we have now, is that more under the auspices of I should talk to Parks and Rec, which I have, or is maintenance and improvement, grading, in some cases resurfacing or re-asphalting the trails that you do have, especially within parks? Is that part of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, no, that is applicable to this. So, you know, we could definitely have an action in the 10-year plan about making sure that trails are maintained. And it's also applicable to the Trails Master Plan, so that's a very helpful comment.
Okay, yeah, because I do have to tell you, I mean, you know how many people use that 0.7 loop around Riverfront Park and walk dogs, people, kids. I have seen people fall. I mean, I don't know if you guys look, there's like valleys and cracks, and that to me would be a short-term thing. Is that something where I should just sort of raise my voice and talk to Parks and Rec or council or what? Before I leave here, I just wanted to know what you suggest.
So, we do have Roz on the call tonight from Parks and Rec, who's our Parks and Rec director. So I'm sure she heard you at least for tonight, Roz.
Yes, I hear you. I'm writing notes. That's why I was looking down. So I definitely just made a note of that, to go and evaluate that and talk to my park staff about.
Well, thank you, because I've helped two people, one who was in a wheelchair and one in a walker, who fell over the last year. So thank you for that. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for the info.
Yeah, thanks, Roberta. Emily?
Yeah, I was hoping to maybe expand on that. I watched one child throw up at a park on a weekend, and I could not figure out, like, I didn't have anything to clean it up with, and I didn't want to leave it there. But like I couldn't figure out, like, who do I call? What's the phone number? Parks was closed. So I wonder if there is, with maintenance, like, could we add like some sort of signage or a way, like, on weekends, who do we call? I think there's a number next to the splash pad now, but just maybe throughout the parks, some sort of way to contact for upkeeping when staff notice, so that we're not like blasting or not knowing where to go.
Thank you.
We do have an on-call number, so we'll take a look at that too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else on connectivity? Okay, I'm going to move us on. So the next section is restoration and maintenance of Vistoso Trails Preserve. I do ask that folks stick to restoration and maintenance. We will definitely get to the funding and volunteers later. We do have those comments on the board for the later part of this discussion. So comments about Vistoso Trails Preserve with regard to restoration and maintenance. Mike?
Yeah, and I think I said it in the last section, but I'm on the preserve every day,
Mhm.
and pretty much every day somebody asks me, "Where am I? How do I get out of here? Where's this? Where's that?" And I don't know why it's taken so long to get the signage up there, but we definitely need something. It doesn't have to be signs. It could be, numbers on the road itself. It could be pretty much anything, but there's got to be some way to help people kind of get their way around there, uh, and have me not have to, be their primary source of information every day.
Thank you. And then Rosa?
So I want to agree with Mike on that. Like we need mile markers too, like, where, and that the sign should also say like where you are, like north, Stone Canyon or, whatever that way, because it really gets confusing as you're going around. You start to lose yourself a little bit. And Emily, the only cell service up here is Verizon. So you probably don't have Verizon. And it's really ridiculous. You can't
I
get like
do. I don't even have that.
you
I
can't
know,
you
it's
can't
horrible.
yeah, it's really bad. Like when people come to my house, because I'm on the preserve, there's no cell service unless you have Verizon. So it is a big thing. You can't use your cell phone. And so what I want to say about like the maintenance and restoration and parks in general is I think that we should evaluate all of our parks and have a standard that we're willing to live with. And so like for the earlier comment about trails that are broken or whatever or dangerous, I just think that we should have a standard, one for safety, and that should always come first, and then ambiance. How does it feel to be in the park? And so Vistoso Trails, the main thing that is so bad about it is that the mountain views are great, but the general area is just despicable. I mean, like right now it looks like the surface of the moon. So, I just think we need to pay attention to that, and that needs to be in the 10-year plan. Like and to that person's point, connectivity is important and adding new trails is important, but just kind of take an inventory of, we seem to have a lot. And I think we should take inventory of everything we have and make sure all of it is safe and pleasant. That when you're on the trail, it's pleasant. You want to be there because you're looking left to right and you're seeing things that are enjoyable and peaceful and rejuvenating, not a dead golf course. So that's, and so I think if we focus on that in the next 10 years in the trails area, that we will come out with a much better kind of system in 10 years. And I know it takes time and money, but we just have to have a standard that everyone gets to have. So no park, if a park is doing well and another one isn't, then focus needs to be on the park that's not having the standard met. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Rosa.
Yeah,
Cheryl, then
I was just walking there and it's a desert. I think it's lovely everywhere, but it's, everyone's opinion. But I do think, I mean, I have all trails and trail forks, and I think that's maybe at the beginning of each of the trails have a sign that says, if you have, you don't have to have cell service. If you have it at home, you can download it and you can use the trail system. I mean, the app without, being offline, and it tracks my every move. It shows me where I'm at. It tells me how many, miles I've done and where to exit and so on. But that might be something to add to signs like, this is the name of this trail system and how to find it in, different apps. But that's what I use because again, and I use it all the time, but I like to track my miles and stuff, but maybe I think sometimes initially it took me a while to figure out what the name of this was in the apps, of this trail system.
Right, thank you, Ruth. I am going to ask folks to please make sure you're raising your hand just so we can go in order. Cheryl, and then Tom.
I agree about the signage. I walk up there quite frequently when I have the time, and I got lost one time and had to go out to Rancho Vista to find my way back to my car, which was way out of the way and it was getting late. But I would also suggest that whatever we do with the signage on that you put it in a manner that somebody who may be a visitor to the area would know how to get in and out, because even I don't know where Stone Canyon is necessarily by the housing names. The other thing is Alltrails an app that you have to pay for?
Ruth, do you know the answer to that?
Sorry, I was clicking on the wrong button here, but Alltrails you can have a free version of it. But I pay for the pro just because I hike and bike a lot.
Right.
But there's a free version of it for your region. And when you know where you're going to go, you can download the particular trail and then you can use it offline, and it still tracks your every move and it shows you where you are, even if you're offline.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree. It needs to have a better appearance. I saw some people that were here from out of state one time, and they were birding in the local park here by me. And I said, "Oh, did you hear about this? Vistoso Trails?" And they didn't know anything about it. So I told them where to go because they were interested in seeing birds. But I must say, there's not as many birds up there as there used to be. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. And I do want to mention Candy put in a link to the Alltrails for everyone in the chat. So thank you, Candy. Tom. And Tom, you are muted. So Tom, you may have to still unmute on your side. Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
Am I there?
Yes. Yep.
Sorry, I connected first via phone, so I couldn't remember the sequence to do on the phone to unmute. But I was just wanting to echo what Rosa and Cheryl have said. One of the great assets of Oro Valley is the parks that we have and the trails that we have. But one of the biggest assets that we have acquired in the last few years is the Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve. And I see nothing in the plan that shows that there's going to be anything provided as part of the 10-year plan for this preserve. And we expect that there will be not just residents, but visitors using the preserve because of its large area, over 200 acres, and the large amount of trails that are part of that. And that was my biggest concern, is just not seeing anything in the plan that even mentions the preserve. So I do hope that will be addressed. I do hope that that's going to be part of it, because being a full-time resident, I think it's very important that we pay attention to it as part of the other parks that are important to others in Oro Valley. That really is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Tom. I do want to clarify with folks, we're creating the plan now. So any of the draft goals you've seen, we'll definitely be creating more draft goals, policies, and actions related to parks after this meeting. So Cheryl, and then Hal.
Okay. I have another question. Only now I forgot what it was. It was relative, oh, I know. On the new Oro Valley app about things to do and visit when you're in town, I don't remember, is the Vistoso Trails on that?
I am not sure. Roz, do you know if it's on it?
I don't know off the top of my head, and I was just on it today. I know they put it together through our destination marketing office, so I'll have to take a look on there and see.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then Hal?
Yeah, one of the things I didn't see in any of the background materials that you provided for this discussion was anything about the property that the Rooney family, I guess, gave to the town a few years back, east of Oracle. What's the status of that?
So actually, that council will be discussing that next week at their meeting. It is an item. So I don't know the specifics, but it is part of the discussion. I would encourage folks to, if you go online now, you can find the meeting agenda and you can read the staff report. But I know
Okay.
they have some things they want to discuss for that property on next.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is to be a recreational asset, that would obviously be a place to put more trails. So,
Yep.
but I guess the council will have to decide what they want to do with it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. And Cheryl, I did check the app. It is on there, Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve. Okay, other comments about restoration, maintenance for Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve? Rosa.
I actually just want to add it that the trails, and this is just in general for trails, and I didn't think of it earlier, so I wanted to say it. We should probably also give information to people on which trails are like good for what kind of hiker and what kind of trail person. Like, for example, Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve is really good for teaching your children to ride a bike. I mean, I know there's lots of traffic on it, but if you go during a time when there isn't, it's not near any roads. It's away from everything. And it's also good for seniors, you know, because it's paved. So like, we should have a way of like kind of saying which trails are for you. You know what I mean? Like whether it's on the app or whether it's just something we, you know, start to gather the information, because that helps people know which ones to choose, because we have so many based on your level and what, you know, like what's good for children, what's good for seniors, what's good for someone who's an avid trail person, whatever. And I didn't see it anywhere else. And I thought that should be somewhere we should, as we're going through in the next 10 years, we should be able to kind of really highlight our trails better so that people know which ones to choose if they've never used the trails.
Great. And that is a good segue into our next session about amenities and signage and safety and promotion. But Mike, did you have another comment for Vistoso Trails Preserve?
Yeah, just the bathroom maintenance, you know, particularly the one near the driving range, the main one, basically where a lot of people park and enter, and then there's no bathroom in order there. So, and it's been like that for a long time.
Mm.
I can comment on that one. We don't have electricity going to that. You need a lift station at that, so there's no electricity running to it, and it was, you know, over $100,000 as of right now.
Yeah, I know it's.
We have it on our list because we've got, you know, a project coming. We don't know what it entails yet, based on
Yeah, that's tough break.
So I definitely am aware of that it would be helpful to have that, and we'll see where we are moving forward. So
Thanks, Ross.
You both. And then Roberta, did you have a comment about Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve? Oh, and you're muted, Roberta.
I'm sorry, I just unmuted. I've only been there once, and I just had this feeling that, like, you know, because I live in the mid-southern part of Oregon, and it's just for people who live like way up there, or Sun City or something like that. I just feel disconnected from it. I mean, it's a gorgeous place. I'm glad it's happening, but it's not the only place in town. Not everyone uses it. I think it'd be nice to do a study on, is it just used by the people around there or not? And if not, and you really want to get your money's worth, is start promoting it more and start and if it's possible, not just signage on the trail, but have better signage about how the hell to get there. I mean, if you're like me and you live like in the central part of Oro Valley, or, you know, people who live in the southern part, it's like, where am I? Where am I going? So, I mean, I almost feel like it needs to be sort of promoted in a way like, hey, it's our park too, even those of us who don't live in that area. You know what I mean? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so part of the OV Trails Connect, we did look at Strava data to see where people go, and Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve is definitely well used and from more than just the residents surrounding it. So, but to your point, it could be promoted and more information on how to get there. All right, I'm going to move us over to our amenities. So under amenities, it was, and this is just general, not for all trails, loop, multi-use paths, not just Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve, but looking at having restrooms, more shade, water stops, lights, lighting is on here. And then so we'll give everybody a moment. And Polly, we will get to safety here in a moment and talk about intersections, but thank you for putting your comments in the chat. So amenities for trails, multi-use paths, or the loop. Give everyone a moment to read. Emily?
Is there a bike pump, like a tire bike pump station anywhere in any of the parks? I have not seen one. Because that could be a cool thing to have, like just a station to fill your tires.
No, we do not have one, but great idea. So thank you.
Yep. Their thoughts about amenities along trails. I'm sorry, I'm trying to scroll down for some folks who are following my screen versus able to move around yourself. Brenda?
Sorry, just getting myself unmuted. One of the things I've appreciated with some parks is where they'll have some signage around like the plants and the animals and some of the different things you're experiencing in the parks, especially more for the visitors and stuff that we would have.
Yeah, great, thank you. I say at my park where I live, they have signs about all the birds that go there. And
Yeah, it's
we've
great
learned a
for
lot
teaching
about
the
birds.
kids and
So, yeah. Roberta?
Yeah, I was looking at one of the comments and hey, I know you can't please everybody, and that's why there are developed parks and natural parks, natural trails and all that. But I was looking at, you know, somebody said with increased heat, one of them says number 3, lights, not adequately lit, you need lights. I mean, that's excellent. There is a place for that, but I'm also hoping in your plan that you also realize that some of us actually go out to look at the stars or like the dark skies when we hike. And that's why some of us have those, you know, little headlamps and things like that. So I hope you consider which trails and which places you are going to keep totally natural with no lighting or anything like that. And then which ones are going to be lighted, because I do think that there is a place for some better lighting on trails, especially at night. And just in general over the 10 years, especially with climate change, I mean, my God, it's going to be 100 this week probably, is to really think about in a changing environment where, you know, 7 months out of the year, it's really hot, lighting at night, extra shade, water stations, restrooms, and some of these things that people talked about. Keeping cool is really important. And the last thing I want to mention, I know this has probably been discussed, is that, you know, when they made that plan to redo Naranja Park, you know, my question was always like, well, how come there's not more trees? Why isn't there more shade? And I had gotten the answer, could be right or wrong, but I think it was correct that they had run out of money by the time that they were going to put more shade in or something like that. And that they told me to wait for the trees to grow. I'm like, yeah, 50 years. I really think that that needs to be a priority. And in fact, in some states like Florida, it is a priority that you have a certain amount of shade because of the weather. There's health issues, there's young people, there's old people, and just people who don't like to pass out in the heat. So thank you.
Yep. And we did get a lot of comments about shade, so we'll get to those here in a moment, when we get to more about the parks and the facilities. So for along the trails, we also heard, and we'll kind of do these three together. Signage, which you guys gave us a lot of good comments for Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve, also signage just in general along trails. And then when it comes to safety, there were some comments about the steepness of certain MUPs in certain areas, and then also just safety at crosswalks and along major roads, which again, Polly, I appreciate you putting your comments in the chat, as well as having safe intersections and the crosswalks themselves, how they function to make them safer. So any comments, questions, or things you want to elaborate regarding signage in general along trails, multi-use paths, or the loop? Or safety? Rosa? Sorry.
So for signage, I know that there's a lot of discussion about how they don't last, you know, like the sun beats them up and stuff like that. So I was going to say that, you know, I think I saw this somewhere in your plan, like, you know, how to like leverage different like volunteerism and stuff like that. You could do an adopt a sign program where someone can adopt a sign so that if it needs to be replaced, that it gets replaced by a volunteer or a donation instead of the town. Because I know they were talking about not having signs, having an app for everything, but I really feel like when you're taking a walk, I try not to use my phone, you know, I try to like just try to be present, you know. So I think signage has to really be, and on all these trails has to really be like a big priority because there's so little of it. And it really helps people, and especially people who are new to the area. And the other thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't see was parking, like parking access to all the different trails. And I know we're identifying that with Vistoso trails, and that will help people who aren't from the area. Because right now they're absolutely right. We haven't figured that out yet, but it's going to get figured out. So parking and maps of our, you know, trails, and to tell people where to park and how to get to them and stuff like that. But I think signage definitely has to be, you know, a priority so that, you know, people have more ease of use. And like I said, an adopt a sign program is great because then it takes that cost away from, you know, other things that you want to do with the Parks and Recs money.
Thank you, Rosa. Polly and then Emily.
Yes, okay. I'm thinking of the multi-use path, the Tangerine multi-use path going east, and you're approaching the Narana Park turnoff at Musette. Currently, the bike path, the Tangerine path, the bike path does curve around that corner at Musette, but it's like a hidden curve. You don't realize the bike path curves and goes around there until you've already gotten onto Musette. And I know it's there and I miss it every time. So my point is, so typically I think, okay, I'll just get on it a little bit later. So I start down Musette into the park, and the curb goes on forever. It seems like it takes a really long time till there's a curb cut where you can get back up on the bike path. And, you know, the shoulder's not real wide anyway, so I just don't consider that real safe. Just, it needs to be more obvious how you can, or more places where you can get onto the bike path. That's it.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification to your comments. Emily and then Mike.
Thanks. I was wondering, I thought maybe there was a plan for a sidewalk or a path along Naranja that leads to the park so that you don't have to walk along the side of the road. Uh, Is that still happening? Is that something we should put as a goal? I'm not sure where that is.
Yeah, so there will be a path along Naranja Drive, so the south entrance of the park. That will be happening. I don't remember, and I don't know, Roz, if you know the exact time frame on that. I know we're partnering with other agencies to fund it, so that's part of it. It's not just Oro Valley paying for it, but it is approved and will be
Okay.
moving forward.
And that
Roz?
will go along where that bridge section is. You know, where like the guardrails are on the edges and you have to be really close to the cars.
Roz, do you have more information on the specifics of the path along Ronha?
I don't, and I think I saw it in a constituent services report that someone had asked, and we told them about scheduling. It was based on ADOT. Because ADOT was running it all and they had the path and the plan on the schedule, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so we can follow up with you, Emily, or with the group with more specifics.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Oh,
wait.
well, I guess my general comment for safety would be to have like access to that park from the neighborhoods, so that you can walk your child to the park, not drive there.
Yep. Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, well, under the topic of intersections, when I think about like coming off the trail at Riverfront Park, there's a very good kind of crosswalk indicator there with, you know, it's really easy to see when you're driving, and that's kind of the ideal. But I live up in Vistoso, and at the traffic circle at Moore Road, it's really very hard to see that crossing. So if you're coming off the trail and you want to continue on, I've actually driven through the crosswalk indicator at times. It's hard to see during the day when it's sunny. It's just little lights that are very, very hard to see. So I think we should probably think about at some point standardizing them throughout the town and maybe using the Riverfront Park one as an example of how it's done well. And it'd almost impossible to drive through that one.
Thank you. Other comments about trail, multi-use path or loop safety or amenities? Okay, I'm gonna move us on then, not seeing any hands. The last comments were about promotion and information. So kind of in line with some of you brought up, making sure we're promoting Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve, but also, and then also some comments on here were similar to what you said also, is making sure that people know that we have the trails, where they are. And then one comment was also promoting the trails and loop as an opportunity for businesses so that they could possibly locate near them, or having food trucks at parks and other areas. Any thoughts about promotion or need for information? Brenda?
Sorry, again, unmuting for my dog. I would think it would be great to do like some promotional activities with sports teams and stuff, maybe some of the UA teams, Roadrunners hockey team, something, doing kind of, getting sports players there, especially like Narana, and doing activities around it or something, and just bringing more people to it.
Okay, great, thank you. Maureen?
Now, I'm wondering if there's ever thought given to talking to some of the businesses that are off the loop and see if they have interest in promotional activities. I'm thinking particularly, there's a nice sandwich shop, Baggins, that's near a bike shop off the loop, not too far from Steam Pump. There's Savoya Coffee Shop that's almost impossible to get to off the loop. But you have to know they're there. There's no indication from the loop. I just wonder if the businesses have ever been if there's been meetings with business owners, chance for them to have input, or if it's actively soliciting their input to see if they would like to, in some ways, be part of more promotional activities. I mean, Freddie's, is there, these are places that bikers particularly when it's warm, you can get ice cream, just off the trail. That's great. But again, you have to know it's there.
I am not sure what, if anything, or what has been done, but we can follow up. But I am getting your comment on the board. And then Mike.
The Friends of Push Ridge Golf had suggested to me that why don't we have signs around the town actually pointing to our recreational activities so that people can find them more easily. So as you're driving along, you see this, there's a golf course, turn here, or there's a nature preserve, 1 mile ahead, that sort of thing. And a lot of towns do that, and we've just never done that. I don't know if it's something that we might consider doing.
Then Roberta.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these wonderful comments here. They're the ones added, and I agree. I mean, I'm one of those nerds that thinks I know a lot of stuff about where I live, but I didn't know there was 54.5 miles of dirt trail either. And, I think comments, I'm sort of the natural trail gal, the dirt trail. And I do think that, not just promoting out to businesses, which I think is an excellent idea, but promoting, as some of these others say, to other people in the town and people visiting the town, maybe brochures or something. Like, for example, if I'm a biker, I just want a list of and a map of the places that I can bike. If I'm a hiker or just somebody who's not a big hiker but just likes to walk on natural or dirt trails, I want to know this is where I can go. I had to find out on my own, suss around that there's the dirt trails around, for example, Naranja Park. I didn't know that. They're not signed. There is a sign, but I didn't know that you have to sort of go south of the archery place and then sort of almost to Naranja, and then you make a sharp left, and then there's a faded map of the trail, but it's not there anymore. You can't read it. So things like that. So I very much agree with using what we have and just sort of cleaning it up and promoting all kinds of trails to the people in the town and people visiting. Thank you.
Thank you. Then Maureen.
Yeah, just one other comment. I've been in other communities where there are trail maps that have sponsorship by local businesses that will indicate, at this location, you can find my business. Stop 1 is this store, stop 2 is that. And they pay for the maps, through, getting their publicity for their businesses. And again, as a cyclist, it would be really nice to have a little map that says, all of these things, including if there is a bike repair place and if they will have a bike stand, that has the tools, and like they have on the Loop in the Tucson area. Those are nice amenities to have, but I think that could be paid for, with the businesses, and they would get benefit out of it through advertising.
Yeah, thank you. And Candy, thank you for the comment about adding QR codes that can lead also people to to an app. So it could be full service and a full directory. Okay. Anything else about trails before we start talking about parks, programs, and facilities?
I just wanted to add, I found information about the Naranja, the trail out there, the path. ADOT is scheduled to open bids on 5/16, so May 16th. So then you look at about 30 days to get a contract in order, and then 30 days before construction starts. So you're looking at midsummer probably, if it all goes as planned, but it's all on ADOT's schedule right now.
Thank you, Roz. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Okay, so the next section is our green area if you're moving around the board yourself. So this is programs and facilities. There were 3 questions that kind of went to this larger topic area that you all answered. So under it, we want to talk about programs for all ages. There were comments about having, again, programs for young families and children, or young children and families, I should say. Indoor program and facilities, so some general comments about that, as well as the types of indoor programs and facilities needed. There are also comments about having different types of classes, using partnerships to have those classes. And then when it gets into how can our existing facilities be improved, comments about shade, water areas, more sports fields and courts, And then having nighttime opportunities, ADA accessibility, and again, outreach and promotion of our parks and rec facilities. So I'm going to start us over on the left-hand side. We're going to start with, and this was so some of the questions that were about this were what park or rec facilities do we need to have that the town doesn't have? And also, how can they be more accessible? So starting with young families and children, I'll zoom in a little bit. So there were comments about having programs and spaces for folks to interact, more programs for children and families as those are underserved in the community. And then there were some comments about specific types of programs and activities like meetups or kid concert series, things of that nature. So give everyone a moment to read. And then Emily.
Sorry, I read ahead. I am just wondering if in the structure of the Parks Department, is there a single person or like how do programs come to fruition for this young children family group? Like, is there a person who does specifically this, or is that underneath something else? How do these things come together?
So first of all, if someone wanted to teach a class, there is a form they can fill out online and it comes to us and they want to be a contract instructor. So that's one of the ways. We have different areas throughout the department that they focus on. So we have outdoor, more of the outdoor and enrichment are the staff that work at Steam Pump. Over here at the fitness center, we'll put in some art classes for kids and maybe some photography, and we have our camps too here. So it all depends what area it falls underneath for who spearheads that.
Yeah, so I think as I was like thinking about these programs, I feel like there's so many out there that like we didn't need to like reinvent the wheel and like list all the things, but it just seems like maybe it might be beneficial to have one person whose sole focus is to develop this area, since it was such a highly requested thing, is to create more for this age group since it is underserved in our community. And so I think my comment is maybe to have like a staff member or even like a section in the the Parks and Rec email that comes out. There's like a senior section. Well, why isn't there like a young family members section? And then maybe we would notice that like there's nothing to write there. Or maybe there is and we don't know about it because it's not getting out there. So putting some more focus in the processes and the way that those programs are originating and maybe having some structure with that might create more direction in that area. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No. Yep. Just finishing up. And then Candy.
Am I correct in thinking the only outdoor pavilion or auditorium such like permanent stage structure is at Steam Pump Ranch? Is that right?
I think
We don't
so.
have another one?
Roz, is there?
We have ramadas throughout the parks. If you're talking just like something to sit under and picnic under or have a party under, if that's what you're talking about.
I'm thinking about a stage. Like you roll in those portable stages at Oro Valley Marketplace for all the holidays and the festivals and things like that. We don't have another semi-permanent structure other than the one at Steam Pump.
No, and we have in our master plan that we're going to look at JDK for actually a possibility. Is that a location? So that is in our master plan for us to kind of evaluate that. And we have some strategic plan goals regarding that as well, because that's usually our hub about where we have events and everyone comes in and sees those events.
Okay.
And I'll also mention that this group last month had a discussion about arts and culture, and one thing that came up was a arts, cultural, and humanities center, which would include a performing arts space, and it would be the town maybe working with a nonprofit to find space and get that going. So Roberta and then Emily.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm sorry, because I'm trying to badly multitask. We are on young families and children, is that correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so, many times that I guess some people have discussed this, the community center bursting at its seams, way too small. I noticed that the kids have a blast, but during summer camp, I wish the kids had more room because sometimes there's some very, very hot days. And, when I go to my Tai Chi or whatever, the kids are having a blast, but I'm thinking, whoa, it gets 115, somebody better, put these kids inside. And then they're smushed into the racquetball court or whatever. And I feel like we definitely do need, hey, I'm old, I'm going to die off, and all of these old farts are going to die off too. I'm all for having more programs for kids and families and letting the young blood come in. And excuse me about being crude, but I really just sort of wish, and I don't know if it's through taxes, I'm hoping a public-private partnership, or maybe some billionaire can swoop in, but boy, could we use another facility so that younger people would have more indoor space too in the summer with summer camps and things like that. I know the town does as best as it can with the limited space it has now, and I'm very proud of my community for doing that, but I'm hoping in the future, just do more. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Roberta. And Emily, I'll get to you in one moment. I do want to let folks know, and you're right on point with all the comments. We did hear about indoor programs and facilities, especially wanting indoor gymnasiums, multipurpose areas, things of that nature. But before we move on to indoor programs and facilities, Emily and then Cheryl.
Yeah, I wanted to point out like the need for support for like new mothers and like young families as they're going through that time range. Because I know the town has a focus on like mental health and supporting people in that area. And that is like a really needed thing. And in fact, there is some groups in the area who support young mothers and support like lactation consultants or small groups for moms and their kids to work out. But they've had a really hard time connecting with the Parks and Rec department. Like they've reached out, and then there's like, fill out this form or send an email, but like, it just doesn't seem to be a fluid process. And so I think, like when you have young kids and you can't like spend hours on the phone or filling out forms, I think streamlining the process so that it is easier to partner with the Parks and Rec, especially for those underserved groups who are working with people who have, like, they need to be with the moms, not with the Parks and Rec department trying to figure out how to work together. So those are my two comments, is like something's focused on new young mothers, young families, and then also making it easier to partner with the Parks Department because it feels very cumbersome right now.
Thank you, Emily. Cheryl?
So I'm not disputing at all that we don't need some plans for some programs for the youth of this town. But I think maybe the reason that we are at this point is because when Pros Consulting was hired to do the parks study back in 2020, and then they did an update in 2021, the bulk of the people in this town are older, above 55. The last 21 update said 48.7% is above 55. So at the time, 2024, they're saying only 15% of the town is under the age of 18. So that's part of the problem. We started to focus, I think, based on that study, on providing more programs for seniors because they were underserved at the time. So now I think if we do take a look at the youth and can expand that program a bit, will be good. We also need to maybe think about who is using our programs to make sure that those that live in Oro Valley have top priority on getting into the camps and the different things like that. And just kind of explore and see what parents would like as programs for their children and go from there. I really am a little bit concerned that we're going to lose a lot of people when Marana's new community center opens, because it's going to be brand new. And I suspect, although I've never seen any data, that there are people from Marana coming here now because they didn't have a facility before. So if we lose too many, that's not gonna, bode well for us as well, but just a lot of things to consider. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Mhm.
Okay, let's move over to indoor programs and facilities. So there were some general comments of just making sure just that we need more indoor facilities because it is hot outside, and that's a good chunk of our year. Then specifically looking at having more multi-purpose or gymnasium type facilities, and also having play areas or playgrounds indoors. Um, and then part of the gymnasium and multi-purpose was having like indoor rock climbing, indoor basketball, but more of a space you can use it for multiple of those indoor sports. So I'll give everyone a moment to read through about indoor programs and spaces or facilities, excuse me. Emily?
I was wondering if I know that Amphi is serving kids lunches during the summer, or at least they were last year. And seemed crazy to me that their lunchrooms would be open for people to come in and get food. So that means like that space is open, but like people couldn't actually use the space, like those cafeterias and gymnasiums. So I wonder, had the Parks Department ever explored a partnership with amphitheater schools to use their spaces during the summer?
I wasn't here when they did it, but I was informed that they did work towards that. They did have some issues when they were using it. I've asked my staff to reinvestigate that since we don't have any gym space to do anything outside of what we can do at the rec center. I did ask my staff to go and investigate some of that as well. So moving forward, you can
Cool.
see some of that will be coming up.
Cool. Yeah, that was my comment, was like, let's partner with the schools. They already seem open.
Thank you. I do know, to Roz's point, that was an action in the last general plan too. And so I think they tried, but I don't remember why it didn't maybe pan out. So 10 years later, we'll try again. Just kidding. Roberta? Oh, and you're muted, Roberta.
Sorry about that. I feel that the Overlook restaurant and bar is totally underutilized. I feel like perhaps, and I know like the golfers, and especially in summer, they could use that huge indoor space for some programs, or I would like to see like some more live music on the weekends, events like that, like maybe with their happy hour, or even just during the day for some, if you want some family events too, like, appealing to different ages. I don't know, well, this is indoor program. It is an indoor program. I mean, the menu hasn't been updated in Lord knows how long. The hours are very limited. There's just something up with it. And every time I've tried to check, I say, well, is this, I mean, I understand, is this, I know that Oro Valley owns it, but I mean, do you lease somebody to run it? Because I don't think they're doing a great job. And I really think that there is so much more to be done with that huge air-conditioned indoor space. So does somebody lease it and they're paying Oro Valley or what?
Roz, do we lease that out to run?
That is our golf contractor, and it's part of their contract. So they run all golf operations as well as the food service ops. We have investigated going into longer hours, but unfortunately, when you look at the return on that investment, if they were to open it further and the amount of staff they would need, you weren't looking at making any money at all. It was more of a loss. I will tell you, we do use that facility there. They have the sunset room when we can.
Yeah, I know.
We kind of balance with them, but you have great ideas, and that's stuff that we always say is it's out there when you guys give us ideas, and we're always looking into other things that we can do. So, we'll always go back and revisit. Definitely.
Well, you don't even have to extend the hours. I mean, happy hour live music events, daytime live music events, or, things that you can do in there. I think you could do a lot without having to expand the hours, but thank you very much for that information.
Thank you, Roberta. Okay, other things about indoor programs and facilities. Emily?
I wanted to touch on the like private versus public version of an indoor facility. Because as we were talking in the comments, like it came up like we should privatize this, we should just encourage other people so people can pay to be indoors. And I really wanted to bring up the fact that like we don't pay to go to people to parks here and to socialize as a community. And so I feel like when we're stuck inside of our houses in the summer, like we aren't being a community, we aren't getting together, we aren't encouraging that connectivity that like really fosters health and wellness. And if we make a place that's indoors that people have to pay to go to, like, you know, when it costs you $2,000 to send your kid to daycare for a week, you're not going to go pay to go to the park in the afternoon that's indoors. Like, you need a place that's easy to go to and free and can, maybe you buy a coffee there and that's how that profit comes up. But I really want to see a place where everybody can go and be a part of the community, but be safe and indoors during the summertime, that people do not have to pay for.
And then Hal?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the possibility of using some of the large vacant retail spaces in town, at least until somebody comes around to put something else in them. I mean, you've got that large space in the Home Depot shopping area near Dollar Tree. That just sits there most of the time. There's empty spaces in the marketplace. Maybe I'm not saying we should put a lot of money into it, but maybe you look at leasing those and programming those spaces at least during the summer.
Okay, thank you. And Candy?
To add what Hal was just saying, one of my comments was based on a business model that does just that. And one of their sections of that business model is not just turfed indoor fields for soccer and lacrosse and, off school programming for camps. And that is, and it's an indoor air conditioned huge space to use. But their other side of their business model is what all kids love: indoor inflatables. So you have all these inflatable companies. What they do is they come and set up 7 or 8 of them and they run them during certain hours. It is a temporary thing and then they close it down. But that makes hand over fist money because people will rent out some of those sections privately for birthday parties during the summer. And then they just run them like sessions. It's definitely cheaper than our indoor trampoline parks like Defy or Elevate or Jumping, whatever they're calling it now. But it is one of those things that is run by the Parks and Rec department. So we have a ton of those inflatable companies around here, but if you give them an air conditioned indoor space that have access to bathrooms and all they do, it's exactly like the Spirit Halloween model, is they set it up for like 8 weeks and they run it during session times. And so that's just an option of something you can do in one of those bigger spaces.
Thank you. And Matt?
Yeah, that pickleball building is going to open pretty soon. I mean, that's an interesting model, and we can certainly watch that and go, if they're successful, then, other people will copy it and follow, not maybe pickleball, but maybe your indoor bouncing thing. So that's right up this alley, and I think it's certainly well worth watching to see how that one all shakes out.
Okay. Other comments about indoor facilities? Okay, I'm going to move us on. There were also comments, and there were some other ones about partnerships, but comments about classes. Now, these could be indoor or outdoor. So offering classes for youth, crafts, related to crafts, working with nonprofits to get instructors. And then also on that token was partnerships. So Also, it looks like there's programs, at Tohono Chul, the library, Children's Museum at Tohono Chul. And then somebody also did mention of working with possibly Marketplace or other areas to rent out space. And then there were also comments about skills classes for youth. Brenda.
Is there any kind of an incentive or opportunity to look for incentives to get people to volunteer? To teach classes. I mean, everybody knows something, or there's a lot of, I think, stories within our community, especially with the older population, that the younger population would love to hear. Just having some way of saying, hey, I'd like to teach a class on AI or whatever. I'd like to teach a class on something that I did, flying a plane or whatever. Just some way for people to kind of put that out there.
Great,
and
thank you.
have a space to register it.
Yeah, we'll get to also more comments about volunteers and incentives too here in a moment, but got your comment down. Emily?
Just about classes, I was thinking about like the cost of the class to do. And of course, my interest is always families and young children. And I wanted to put it out there again, like the cost of the class to lower the cost, or even if the city was partnering with somewhere that offers a class to make it more affordable for families. Because again, it's very costly to raise a child right now. And while there may be dance classes or gym classes in our area, even families who are doing well, it is very difficult to afford those things at this moment. And so making those cost effective through the city is a much needed area.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, anything else about classes or partnerships? Candy.
One thing in my comment that I did mention was those types of skill classes to meet that young child, tween, teen area. For some reason, our community center doesn't offer basic things that would benefit the community if more people in the community knew how to do it well and effectively, like CPR first aid. In every city I've ever lived in, that is a community center class. Self-defense is a community center class that is offered all year round, and it's Moneymakers. Driver's Ed, also a community center class offered year round. And I do understand there are companies that have privatized that and do that well, but there's no reason why we couldn't be using our fire department resources, for example, to teach the first aid, CPR, defibrillator class, so more people in our community know how to use those things and do that. That benefits everybody. There's also multiple cities I've lived in where it is an educational requirement that every 9th grader knows how to do CPR, first aid, the Heimlich maneuver, and know how to use a defibrillator. And that helps everybody in a high school population, right? So there are things that I think should be looked at on that community schedule of what are the classes that will also benefit the community overall, and to make those standards of being offered seasonally or year round.
Thank you. We're gonna go Roberta, then back to Emily.
To piggyback on what Candy said, another thing I'd like to see is I've lived here for years, but I've moved here from 22 years on the west side on 4 acres in the desert next to Saguaro West. So yeah, I know it's different, and I love living in Oro Valley. I feel so fortunate to be here, but everybody plants things from where they're from, and besides the golf courses, of course, a lot of plants with water use. I would love to see a class in xeriscaping, desert landscaping, something like that, to get more people to get more water smart, just like we have that lovely water smart app for Oro Valley, which I love. That would be wonderful. I'd also like to see, and this could be class and partnership, I would love to see a community garden. And I know that Steam Pump, I partner with maybe Tohono Chul or a local grower or something, even a Home Depot to give plants. But I know that the Steam Pump Ranch has that small one, the container garden, which is great. I don't know if that's just for kids or what, but I mean, I'm talking about a community garden where that, like Tucson does, or even Catalina, where people would have plots, and if you can't afford anything, and this, by the way, would be, Emily, would be another wonderful thing for kids too, is to teach kids how to garden and to plant desert things and how to propagate and pick vegetables. It would be, I don't mean pick vegetables for a living, but that's okay. But that's wonderful. And I wish they would do more of that, because I think that it's so important. We're living in a desert. We need to know where we're living. People of all ages, we need to know about where we're living. So community garden, if you can't afford it, you put X number of hours a month into it and you get some produce or plant or something like that. And like I said, either just offer it as a class, not only for seniors who move here for somebody else, but also for young people and families. And then, like I said, a possible partnership with either Tohono Chul or some kind of grower or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Emily, and then we'll move to the next set.
Yeah, not my comment, but I just want to make sure we do offer self-defense for busy people, right, at the rec center. And I believe we also offer CPR and first aid, I think, right? Yes, okay, we do.
Yes, we
So
have
those
safety.
two, I don't think the driver ed, but we do offer those first two. So my comment was about the partnerships. So my experience and from what I've heard is that it is difficult to partner with the city, like lots of red tape, lots of forms, and then a really big loss of profit for people who go through the city rather than doing it on their own. That's what I've heard. I've not done it myself, so maybe, my vision is, or my opinion is skewed, but my suggestion would be to look at the way people can partner with Parks and Rec and maybe try and make sure there's a clear pathway so that things can be offered more easily.
Thank you. Okay, so our next area was, these next columns are focused on ways to make parks more accessible, especially during the summer, but also ways to improve our facilities and parks. So shade and even water features came up, so we can kind of look at those two columns. So the shade kind of goes along with even the indoor, if there's not indoor facilities, having more shade along paths, sport facilities, play areas. And then with water, it was having another community pool or swimming pools, drinking fountains also, misters got brought up, but I'll let you folks read. Emily?
Yeah, my main two comments were the Oro Valley Aquatic Center shade and the splash pad. I don't know if it's still planned to be updated. It's so horrible, the splash pad there. It doesn't even, like, stuff's broken. The shade needs to be replaced. It was there. It was a facility taken away. And so that's a big upset in my community of moms. Everybody talks about that. And then the shade at Naranja Park, it's just, the trees are not going to grow. That's not a solution. We all know that. It's Arizona. They're not going to cover that park. We need shade over Naranja Park. It's just a must.
Thank you. Candy?
So Naranja Park is the big one for me personally, because I have two kids that are involved in sports, and also Naranja Park is kind of the home field for our middle school / high school of when we're hosting other people from out of town for those sports activities. And the one thing that we have to put in every single reminder of single sports thing is make sure you bring umbrellas, make sure you bring shade, make sure you bring pop-ups. And we have to say that over and over again because people are caught off guard that there is literally no shade there. But my question maybe to the group at all would be some suggestions on how would you provide shade for the teams, as in the people who are playing, who are on sidelines, and then also some fan shade of people who are supposed to be the spectators for such a big open space like that and multiple fields. Like, how would that even look in a master plan to be able to utilize that space the way that we do it now?
Yeah, so at least from the 10-year plan, it's much higher level than that. It wouldn't get into the specifics of the type of shade. It would be more of looking at shade opportunities. And one reason is, keep in mind, this is a 10-year plan. And so we want to be detailed enough that it's meeting the intent. So even making sure it's shade for teams and spectators. But not so specific that we're saying use a sunshade or use this type of structure because things can change in 10 years. And so we'd probably want to keep that more open to allow flexibility. But I got your comment down and hear you about the spectators and the teams as they play. And then Mike?
Yeah, I want to second what Emily said about the splash pad at the aquatic center. I mean, one thing we forget about is that Emily is talking about, parents and young kids, but a lot of us are grandparents and we have our grandkids come and visit. And, it's just a disaster. I had no idea that there was no shade there when I went there, and it was just horrible. It was a really hot day. So I think it's more than just parents, as a lot of us are, do have grandparents, are grandparents. So we should keep that in mind as well.
Yep. Thank you. Roberta?
Yeah, sort of has to do with shade, water, features and water. On the weekends in the summer, well, mostly in the summer when I hang out there, the small pool at the community center, it's small and you can have a couple of lanes for open swim and all that. And there actually is a little shade area there that's sort of nice. You can drag a chair under there. But I've talked to a number of people there over the years who come for the weekend open swim in those 2 lanes. If you don't know, they open 2 lanes on the weekends, noon to 5, I think, at the small Oro Valley Community Center pool. And I've talked to people and I said, I asked them about the James Creek Park and all that, the aquatic center, and everybody said, I've been there once, not worth the money. I went there. It's not the kind of place where you want to go and either go with a friend or bring kids or family or yourself or whatever. It's just, there's no shade there. There's no chaise lounges. It's not really made for that kind of thing. And I really think we need more of a facility for swimming, or try to make the aquatic center more human friendly with chaise lounges and shade and relaxation areas and places where people can sit. And then, hey, that's fine. I'll pay the extra money with my membership, or I'll pay the daily rate over at the aquatic center. If I could say, hey, you know what? It's summer. I'm going over there for a couple hours, sit in a chair, hang out, just sort of gossip with friends and dip in the pool, and it'd be great. It's not that right now. I know that's not what it's supposed to be, but I feel like, hey, it's just for professional swimmers and not like normal people. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Roberta. Mike, did you have your hand back up? I couldn't. No. Okay. Rosa?
So I can give you a little perspective on that. When my kids swam at that pool, it was a municipal pool that was donated by Pima County to Oro Valley, and it was in really disrepair. And after so many years of being involved, I got elected to try to get it even open year round. They used to close it in November and open it in February. And we found out that the reason was because the Parks and Recs director worked from home in the winter and didn't feel like coming to Oro Valley. I'm not kidding. So anyway, we got it open year round. That was number one. And they were losing money because they would let the entire pool cool down and then bring that entire pool up to a decent temperature for the swim teams to get back in February. So anyway, that's just kind of a little like,
Yeah.
so I was the person who actually did the research and requested the feasibility study to get that place renovated. But here's the deal. In order to do that, we had to prove the town would make money off of the facility. And I'm bringing this up because one of the biggest challenges for Parks and Recs is it for the people or is it to bring in revenue? Because you hear that, because I've been in all the parks and all these Path Forward meetings, and this is poor Malini's job. Like, how do you smooth all that out in the 10-year plan? Like, what is Parks and Recs for? Is it for the people who live here, or is it so that we can support businesses, and can we do both? And so the swim teams are really a huge source of revenue for the Parks and Recs department to be able to even keep that facility going. But I agree with you 100%. It is not a pool to go to as a resident if you want to spend a Sunday afternoon. And even the pool at the so-called community center is used for swim team as well, because that's how they make revenue. So it is an issue. And then of course, how to make things affordable and make things accommodating and everything else. So Parks and Recs has that issue. They have to get some user fees, and actually they're raising them. So get ready for that, because it just that we have so many facilities, and I'm sad to hear that the splash pad at the aquatic center is in disrepair, but it doesn't surprise me. It just, there's a lot of assets to take care of, and so that's the reason that you can't go and relax there. And it's really funny because I see people running for council and they'll say, I'm going to get rid of sports tourism. We ought to be able to go to our facilities and we shouldn't have sports tourism. And then they get on council and realize that you can't afford it if you don't have those teams and paying the thing. So it's a challenge, but it is an important point that you brought up. Like, how do we make Parks and Recs more accommodating to the residents without charging a fortune and still keep the facilities up? And it's challenging. One is to look at where all the money goes, and that's all I'm going to say. And that's a trick part of my answer. Where does all the Parks and Recs money go? And if you find out where it all goes, maybe you can say maybe it shouldn't all go there anymore, and we should spread it out a little bit. So anyway, I'll shut up now.
I get it, Rosa. Thank you for the insight about the pool. I really appreciate that, for illuminating it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Emily, and then we'll move on to the next set.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Thanks for your background and thanks for your hard work. We are frustrated with the aquatic center, but we are there every day for swim lessons, so we use it. So my other comment about the aquatic center is the hours for open swim for families. 11 to 4 is prime nap time. So you literally cannot go with young kids for more than like an hour at 3 o'clock, or you go to a different pool, because that's when you're not going to like have a screaming child and not take a nap. So it would be really awesome if there were some later day hours as it's getting hotter.
Yeah. Candy?
Sorry, one last thing, since we are talking about water features, and it seemed to we've danced around the subject a little bit, but is there a possibility of adding on to the current pool or making an indoor pool space as more of an entertainment complex at the community center grounds, of having it all in one space, similar to what Marina is going to be having, and they're going to be making money and generating money. So that's the second part of that, obviously. Is that something that could be considered as part of the 10-year plan, because we do have these older facilities? So
yeah, and again, we might be more broad in the 10-year plan, but trying to get to the intent behind that of having more opportunities in the community. But yeah, I have it on the board, and we could definitely look at how to phrase it so it's still making sure we're getting at what you guys are saying. Emily?
Sorry, one last thing. Water features, the splash pad at Naranja Park. There have been a lot of injuries from kids using the slide that's at Naranja Park. And so I just wanted to put it on the radar that we may need to look at safety and the Naranja Park splash pad I've seen collarbones broken, teeth knocked out, broken arms from kids going down that slide and hitting other kids who are just walking around. So safety issue could be something that comes up.
Yep, thank you. Yes, and I don't mean to rush any of us. Like I said, I anticipate we won't get through this whole board tonight. So please, if you have more comments about these things, raise your hand. But for the, gonna move us forward though for now, and we could always go back. So also looking at other options or opportunities is sports fields and courts. And then at different parks, and then also having nighttime events and entertainment spaces. So the entertainment spaces wasn't specific to nighttime, but there were comments about, especially as it gets hotter, having more events in the evening when it cools down. And then let's see, food truck parks. And then like mini golf courses. So comments about entertainment spaces, events, or sports facilities. Rosa?
Didn't we approve like a food truck park area recently?
So it was a private property. We approved a code amendment to allow a food truck court. It would be a private entity providing that. And I don't believe they're moving forward with doing it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but the code was updated to allow it in the town.
Where was it? I don't recall where it was.
It was, if you're familiar with, it's Mercado del Rio, which is right off of Pushview Lane and kind of Oracle behind where the Breakmasters is.
So it isn't close to like some of our parks or anything like that.
It was
So-
off the loop mostly. So yeah.
But yeah, so maybe that would be like a goal to, look at code amendments nearer to where some of our parks are, to be able to go to the park and be able to take advantage of some food truck type thing, pop up, food events and things like that.
Yeah, and the code was just to allow that use, it doesn't specify locations. So right now, as long as as long as people meet code, they can go where they choose. But we can look at, making sure the code makes it so those can go in those areas.
Okay, I just think it's a good idea because then you do get that, connectivity, the community that everybody, I know you do it at Steampunk Ranch. So.
Yep. Brenda?
Just one of our favorite events this last year was October, when there was a dog event in the evening, and it was just really incredible. They had the adoption agencies there and stuff, and a bunch of vendors set up for all kinds of dog things and a dog costume competition and stuff, and just our family really loved that. And so just more opportunities even for things like that, kind of open markets in the evenings, especially around like pet or something.
Okay. Then I'll keep moving us on unless I see hands up. So the last kind of area with regard to facilities and programs was ADA accessibility, especially within the parking lots. And then again, outreach and maintenance, which is similar to the trails, just making sure there's outreach and education of what's available, and then maintaining our existing spaces. So Mike?
Yeah, and Rosa, maybe maybe you should follow up on this. I know this, you've said there's a lot of programs, and we should definitely do a lot of surveys and find out what people want, and what are the things that people are interested in doing, and that's all valid points. One thing I did want to say in the defense of Parks and Rec is that, we are asking people here, this exercise and all the exercises that go with this. And I've said in various other meetings, I lived in a town in New Jersey for 25 years, and they did not spend 2 minutes asking the residents what they wanted, what they should spend their money on, what they thought of it, what was going on. So, I mean, I applaud the efforts by the town of Oro Valley to get our input. They may not always get it right. And certainly a lot of the comments that I've heard today are really, really on point. But at least they are, you know, the town is trying, and at least they are looking for our feedback. So I salute that.
Thank you, Mike. And I know that something that was brought up by the Sports Alliance too was there was an effort with the Parks and Rec Master Plan. I think there was a survey done with that. They did have some events and stuff. So it could also be periodically updating that plan as well, which would have some outreach attached to it. If the group thinks that's worthwhile. Okay, so our last section is, oh, I'm sorry, Roberta, my apologies.
Yeah, a quick two things on the outreach and maintenance. Maybe I don't know this, but could we have, or is there like sort of a hotline to leave messages for maintenance? Like, for example, I was walking one of the dirt trails that's right outside the loop of Riverfront Trail a week or so ago, and then you know, we've had a lot of high wind. There was a big tree limb that was blocking the trail, and I couldn't find anybody in the maintenance yard. Do we have a hotline for things like that at all, or can there be, where people just leave a message or something?
I believe Roz did, yeah, Roz said there is.
Oh, there is. Well, okay,
Is
maybe we could
more
promote that
information.
more,
Yeah.
put it up, because I did not know that.
There's multiple ways you can report something. If you go onto our web page, it tells you how to do it by email, by phone, or in person. And you can do any of those. You can leave a message over. So this is just for a message. This isn't our emergency. like,
Right, I
on
understand that.
call. So if you click on that, what I just put in the chat, you'll see it goes to a page that tells you how you can report via email, phone, or in person. Our Parks and Rec office is the one that takes your phone call basically, and you just leave a message. Last digits are 5050, and you'll see that phone number. It's 520-229-5050. And that gets our admins, and they'll farm it out to the Parks Department or whichever department it needs to go to.
Thank you. I appreciate that information. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of outreach is consistent problem at the parks, especially Riverfront Park. I'm wondering if any outreach can be done through the Parks and Rec or the police department or community policing, or as something to come and educate the people in Riverfront Park about all the loose dogs that are around all the time. There is an unofficial loose leaf dog park, and people, actually a friend of mine was knocked over by a dog. This is a consistent problem, and I've been told just call the police, call 911, but the police are doing other things. By the time they come, maybe the person's gone or has a dog on a leash. And I'm talking about outreach, not just signage, where maybe people can come and educate the community and say, we do have leash laws here, and you cannot let your dogs just run around. And I'm talking about people my age and older who should know better. I'm not talking about younger people or little kids here. So to me, that's an important part. I mean, I love dogs, but my dog, I try to keep him away from other dogs, and he's been like charged, and you know, people just walk away, and I try to politely tell them to put their dog on a leash, and I've been yelled at, I've been abused, I've had to walk away. There just needs to be more education about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberta. And we got your comment. Emily and then Rosa.
I think we've talked about this in a previous meeting, but maybe it goes here also, is just like the communication with people in the community who need to know about like the events, like the Celebrate Oro Valley event that is happening. I was looking at the Facebook event, and there is like so few people who have responded going to it. And I know there's more people that would love to hear about it. So I'm wondering if there could be some sort of study, or you've done a great job of outreach with Oro Valley Path Forward, but just how do we get the awesome information that our Parks Department does into the ears of the people who need to hear it? Because it's disconnected right now. And that even I was looking at the Oro Valley app, we have it on there, but it just doesn't seem to be getting to the people it needs to hear, that need to hear it.
Thank you, Emily. Rosa, sorry.
So I just read my comment and I saw what Mike was referring to. I think I need to be a little clearer. It isn't the Parks and Recs Department per se. It's also, if you get down to the end of my comment, where I think we need, geographic and demographic equity. If you look at the last 10 years, how Parks and Rec spent their money and where most of the money was spent, that's my point. And I think that as the next 10 years unfolds, we need to look at making the distribution. It's not the Parks and Recs Department, it's the people who make decisions about where the money goes. And so it needs to be in this plan that Parks and Recs needs to consider all age groups, consider all activities, and distribute those precious amenity funds in a way that serves the entire community, not one sport. And that's my complaint, because it is documented. There is a 10-year analysis of one sport that shows that it pretty much consumed $27 million in the last 10 years. And that's why there's no shade at Naranja. That's why things can't be fixed. So it is very important that we address this in the next 10-year plan, that the amenity dollars for Parks and Recs have to take into consideration all the community of Oro Valley, not just one sport.
Thank you. And then Candy?
One thing for outreach, just to bring it back for that I was going to suggest is a partnership with the local schools of knowing about the kid-friendly events that are coming up. For example, I found out, and I'm on the Trails in the Loop every day, but I found out about the Oro Valley celebration happening tomorrow when my 14-year-old came to me and said, "Hey, I'm playing dodgeball." And I was like, "What?" Apparently there is a teen dodgeball tournament happening tomorrow, and you get 6 friends together and it's free. But I didn't know that that was happening. I didn't know what event it was associated with until he came to me to tell me about that. And he learned about it because 2 of his friends are on the teen council that happened to be going. But if there was more communication directly with Parks and Rec about what was happening that would appeal to kids of all ages directly with the school, all the schools have individual newsletters. They all have individual, e-blasts that they put out, all of their individual, either Parent Square or Schoology or whatever programs that they're using anyway. They're always looking for content to fill those things. So that would kind of be like a natural, I think a natural partnership to have to help with outreach.
Yep. Thank you, Candy. And Cheryl?
For those of you that don't know, you can actually go onto the town website. I think it's under Ask Oro Valley, and you can sign up to get automatic email blasts that like from Parks and Rec, and you can get the media releases, or you can get the town council agendas, any of that information. It's free. They just email it out to you whenever, every week that they put something out. So that's an option until Parks and Rec gets to do the additional things that you've suggested, which are very good, but just in the meantime, at least it gives you something to look at.
Thank you for sharing, Cheryl.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm not seeing any hands up. We have about 10 minutes left, but we can at least start the conversation in our purple area, which is about volunteers, partnerships, and funding. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but I do want to give more time to this. So first is volunteer programs. And so it is looking for volunteers to help out with teaching programs at the parks. Adopt a Park or Adopt a Trail is on here. We do have an Adopt a Trail program, but we could definitely look at promoting it better. And I don't, and then also with this, we can look at both these together because they kind of go together, is incentives. So ways to maybe try to get more people to volunteer. There's offering passes. Let's see. Training. So give everyone a moment to look at volunteer programs and incentives. Candy, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I see a reference in the incentives to one of my ideas for the volunteer programs, which would be a school-based youth program in conjunction with the schools. And essentially would be in other communities that I've lived in, volunteer hours are a requirement for graduation. They're not a requirement at all of our area junior highs or high schools when you're moving forward into the next kind of like phase of where you're doing that. It is a requirement for your junior honor society and your honor society kids. And they're always looking for volunteer opportunities because the age of a volunteer is very tricky to align with specific organizations because of liabilities. So oftentimes what ends up happening, and Reed Park Zoo is a great example of this, it's family volunteering. So you can be there with your 10-year-old, but like a parent has to be there to monitor the child volunteering anyway. So it's kind of twofer. You're getting 2 volunteers for 1, which is great, you know, as much as a skill set that a 10-year-old will like actually help you with volunteering hours. It's still one of those things because schools are requiring a lot of volunteer hours for graduation, for junior honor society, and it's difficult finding those partnerships anyway for the parent. If the community center or Parks and Rec were to offer those kind of as a package deal, I think you'd have a lot of people take you up on that.
Okay. Emily.
You know, that kind of brought to my mind, like, why not offer discounts for amenities within the city for volunteer hours? You know, like not huge discounts, but enough that people will be like, oh yeah, I'll volunteer this amount of time. That would be something that the city could do.
Thank you. Okay, and then there were other comments about partnership. Oh, sorry, Cheryl. My apologies.
Kind of a last minute one. I'm just wondering, has anybody gone to the school boards to talk to them about maybe making some requirements for the students to do anything? Or can the youth advisory committee do anything about broaching that with the school superintendents?
Sure, we can put that down. I don't know if that's been done, but yeah, I'll get it on the board. Okay, looking at partnerships. This is kind of big, but there are partnerships with schools, which was a great tie-in to what Cheryl just said and what Candy gave us. Also looking at partnerships with local groups or nonprofits. So that was also looking at partnerships to do volunteers, but also partnerships for programs. It looks like there's some for Audubon Society as well as other groups. And then local businesses. So the pickleball place, but also looking at opportunities to partner with those to possibly sponsor things or also for space. So we've touched on some of a little bit of this before, but if there's anything you want to add, we're leading partnership related to partnerships. Matt.
Yeah, you should also include partnership with the HOAs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can get them to do stuff.
Roberta?
Perhaps a partnership with local AARP, because for example, people that are older, including me, I would love to do work. I mean, even work on like vegetation, landscaping things, but I can only do it for an hour or 2. So maybe some shorter times and some volunteer work with shorter times, and also that might be more geared to seniors. Thanks.
And I am just going to move us to the last one so we can kind of talk about all together, just because I wouldn't want to leave one area left for a whole meeting. So we're looking at funding opportunities, way to leverage funding. There were some comments about property tax and maybe time. I will let the group know. We have another group who just focused on town finances and revenue sources. And so as that group kind of proceeded of all the various revenue sources, there are some, you'll see some draft goals, policies, and actions related to looking at ways to expand the town's revenue. The group did decide they didn't want to specify which types of sources. And so it is a little broad, but they did want to make sure that the community was engaged in all those conversations as well. And then there's a couple comments about needing multiple sources, but then also more of the use of funds. So I think Rosa talked about this a bit as well, and how the funds are being used and maybe how they could be reused for other things. But if anybody has comments about property taxes, use of funds, or also if you still have more about partnerships. Roberta.
I feel like we could consider charging non-Oro Valley residents more to use the community center, pool, etc. I mean, what is it, $5 a day? And that's pretty cheap. You know, other places it's 10, 15, 20. I mean, I don't want to scare other people away. And of course, you know, we open arms to other communities, but if you're not an OV resident, it is so cheap to go and take a class at the community center or swim or whatever. So I agree with considering raising fees for non-residents. Thanks.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, I see the golf course in here, and I wonder if there's like a way to separate how we look at the golf course. I mean, I've sat in the funding meetings for PRAB where we talk about it, and the golf course is profitable, and I see that. I've seen the numbers, and I've seen, you know, we've sat through the finance meetings and all the tiny little numbers that they present, but I just wish that it wasn't all about golf. Like I understand that that's a big part of our community, but golf is one area that doesn't serve everyone. And it would be really nice if that wasn't like the focus of so much of Parks and Rec. Like I know it's big, I know people appreciate it. It feels like it can be consuming of the fees conversation, of the services conversation, and it overshadows a lot of the other things that other people in our community need. And so I wonder if there's like a way that we could shift our focus so that it doesn't continue to overshadow those two areas, if they're going to continue to exist, and we can pull them apart.
Let me ask the group. So it's 7:28. My promise always to these groups are we'll end on time. But since we're in our last area and we have 2 hands up, is everybody okay staying maybe an extra 5 minutes tonight? And if you need to get off, please do. We do record the meetings and we will post those. Okay. So gonna take some of Rosa, then Candy, then Brenda.
I'm not trying to be a poo-pooer, but golf is not profitable. It is not profitable. It has it made a few bucks one year and lost the next, but for the first 5 years, we put $9.75 million into golf to prop it up. And then after that, if it made money one year, it lost the next. Over the 10 years that we have funded golf, it has not made any money. So I'm sorry to have to correct that. So you're right, Emily, and it makes you even more right that we need to really, as a community, advocate for other parks and recs so that it doesn't all get spent there. There's a reason for it. There's something called a community center fund, and that community center fund is supposed to support golf in the community center, but the problem is it's been used as a piggy bank. And it needs to stop because there isn't enough money. That community center fund generates just under $4 million. It didn't when it first started. And it's a 0.5 cent sales tax that every single Oro Valley resident pays. And it's just an education process that people need to be educated about that so that they know that that is how Parks and Recs gets a good bit of their money. And it does need to be shared with all programs. So I just wanted to make that point. I'm not trying to be a poo-poo, but those are just facts. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Gebhardt published a golf analysis on February 14th for the council. It was for the Budget and Finance Commission. And on Appendix 2, it lays out the entire 10 years so that you can see what I just said. And it's public information.
Okay. And what I'm getting, regardless of if it's profitable or not, it just seems like from these comments, there just needs to be more spreading distribution. Let's go to Candy and then Brenda.
One thing to piggyback what Rosa was saying, golf overall is changing as a sport because of the modern family does not allow for an 8-hour hobby. So the difference between that is that families are using golf in different ways. So you don't have that 18-hole course anymore. You have that smaller 3-hole course. You have that very intricate, cool, natural looking putt-putt course, or multiple ones that the whole family and multiple generations can play at the same time. And it has to be faster. So if you want to invest in golf, you need to be investing in a driving range, because I can give you 30 minutes, but I can't give you 8 hours because I have stuff to do. And that's kind of the way the modern family works now. So I do like golf because of the multi-generational aspect of it. You know, my father and my father-in-law are very good golfers. They take my 14-year-old out. The 11-year-old couldn't care less. The 14-year-old likes to drive the golf cart and he likes to play with his grandparents. So having something like that as accessible to bring people together is great. But because the sport of golf is changing overall, it has to be, you have to have the facilities to adapt to what the sport actually is now. And it's not a lot of big, long playing games. So investing in huge golf courses with these massive water features and stuff may not necessarily be the best plan. If you look at Tiger Woods live golf and things like that of how they're changing the sport, it is very much more top golf and action-based now, more than it is long course golf courses. And that's going to be the future players. So I think when we look at sports overall, we kind of need to look at where like the future of the sports are going before we invest a lot of money in one sport. Pickleball.
Okay. Thank you. Brenda.
I want to touch back real quick, sorry, on the partnerships aspects. I'm just wondering if there's interest within the town to reach out to some of the companies on the South Phoenix side, you know, to kind of get their workers to understand that there's a cheaper but really nice environment down here that's a bit of a drive, but if they're working remote anyway, you know, learn more about this. Reach out to Intel, TSMC, these other companies up in that area.
Okay, thank you. Look at. Then, Roberta, I got your comment about a few more basketball comments, so thank you. Okay, so very impressed by this group that we got through it all. I know we added a little bit more time, but really appreciate you sticking with it. We got a lot of great information to start crafting those goals, policies, and actions. So with that, your next meeting will be April 24th, and that will be where we're kind of talking about the first draft. And again, the first draft, for those of you who have been in these groups before, you know they're very rough. And it's really just the first attempt to capture everything that we've heard, not only from this meeting, but also from over the past year. So with that, I want to thank you all and hope you all have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.